In a world filled with sharks, bears, and killer bees, one man is brave enough to stay indoors to bring you the latest in gaming, movie, and pop culture news. That man is Tom Awesome, and this is the Outside is Overrated podcast.
Hello and welcome to Outside is Overrated Game Club. Today we're wrapping up our discussion on Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon by From Software. I'm your host, Tom Sidlogic, and joining me for the discussion today are Munch Time, John Munch.
All right, let's cook. Let him cook. He's got it.
Dr. B, Brian Camille.
Hi, guys.
And Patreon supporter / soon-to-be main show contributor, Mike Mathwig.
Gentlemen.
Outside is Overrated is presented by Premier Health. Check out their website at premierhealthmn.com. That's premierhealthmn.com. In this monthly segment, we play a game with our community, invite our Patreon supporters to join us on the discussion. If you want to join in next time, support Outside is Overrated on Patreon at patreon.com/OiO. You can back the show for as little as $2 a month. I'm going to start by setting some expectations and coughing away from the microphone. Here's what we're going to discuss today. What is Armored Core 6? We're going to discuss our complete, spoilery thoughts on the story, and I'm willing to bet that Mike and I are going to go toe-to-toe on this one. Then we're going to talk about our favorite builds, moments, and bosses. Armored Core 6 released in August 2023. It has a Metacritic rating of 86. The core gameplay loop consists of going on missions, blasting some mechs, earning some cash, tinkering with your loadout, and then getting super frustrated by a handful of nigh unbeatable bosses. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a high-speed mecha action game by From Software where players pilot customizable combat mechs in a war over a mysterious energy source called Coral. The game features intense battles, deep mech customization, and fast-paced movement. It blends challenging boss fights with tactical decision-making. The game retains the series' mission-based structure while incorporating modernized controls and design philosophies from Software's more recent titles. Now that we're in our Part 2 discussion, this game intends for you to do multiple playthroughs, introducing new story missions and New Game Plus. Assuming that we all saw credits roll, John, what was your level of excitement for New Game Plus?
It's interesting. When I saw credits roll, I was like, I want to jump right back in. And then I jumped right back in and I stalled, right? Like, I was like, oh, all right. I mean, I kind of bounced off going back and playing through the same story. So it was though, like, it had me drawn in, which is not normal for me because normally I am like, okay, I'm done. Let me go on to the next thing.
Why did you bounce off of it? Because they do give you some different options in New Game Plus. You can make different choices than you made the first time. So, like, why did you decide you hated this game with a burning, fiery passion, John?
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I think why, though, is because I had already kind of... The loop doesn't change of the gameplay, right? So the loop doesn't change. Like, it is still like, okay, go through. I had just done all this fun gameplay with this great loop, and it's a great loop, right? But it was like, oh, all right, I get a little stuck, bring out big tank mode, keep going. I get a little stuck, bring out big tank mode.
And I'm going to jump ahead with my thoughts here because I was the opposite end of the spectrum from you on both parts of your statement. I'm like, oh man, New Game Plus, like, I don't replay games. Like, I don't really want to do this again. But then I jumped into it and I started tearing through these missions. I'm like, oh, I have all the tools that I need. Like, I have a build that I like and I'm just shredding everything. And I cooked through New Game Plus. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And now I'm going to attempt a third playthrough of this game. Mike, what was your level of excitement for New Game Plus? Did you see credits roll a second time on this game?
I did. I kind of screwed up and I didn't get a different ending because I made a bad choice in there. So I ended up with the same ending twice, which was disappointing. But I did go through a second time, which was still fun. I did not try to go for a third time.
Well, that's interesting. With that same ending, I assume that you sided with the Liberation Front both times?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm going to have some strong feelings in the story time. Brian, what about you? What was your odyssey with this game? Because, like, I look back at text messages, and on January 3rd, I'm like, hey, you should play Armored Core. You have had quite an experience here, Brian.
So it's been up and down. So the game I enjoyed. There are lots of games that I get introduced to because of the show, and there's games that I've famously liked and games that I famously hated. This is definitely in the former. This is in the light category. This is probably not something I would have played prior, but I have really, really enjoyed it. The level of customization and all that stuff was amazing. And I blew through a huge portion of the game right away. We did our first show. Monster Hunter Wilds came out, played a bunch of that. But then as I was getting back into my save file, I think I had like 4 missions left. For the first time ever, I had a PS5 save file corrupt. I could not load it. And I'm like, oh, well, then I'll just hop on the cloud, pull that down, and go from there. That one also would not load. So I've never had this happen with any other game before. So I had come back to it on, I want to say like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that.
Well, I sent the
So
show
I was like,
notes
okay,
on
now-
Sunday, and you texted on Monday saying your save file was corrupted.
Yeah, I'm like, now I have to power this thing through. So I got all the way through the main story. I beat the game, and then I am maybe like maybe a third, maybe less than that through the story again. But the second time through, to be honest, like the muscle memory is interesting. Where I don't think you totally appreciate how much better you're getting at the core mechanics of the game alone, really dodging and just general movement. But as I got into the going through the missions a second time, even when I was using some of my old builds, I'm like, well, let's use the old build and we'll just see how I do. I was obliterating stuff. It was crazy how fast you kind of like take this stuff in almost to like a muscle memory standpoint. I was pretty basic on my first playthrough, but now I'm using like the tetra legs. I've been using the bipedal legs, like the jumping legs. And just some different kinds of weapons. The level of customization, I've already said it once, dude, it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming to change your build because there's so many things that you can do. And all are viable, all are super fun. So I've really enjoyed it. I will likely finish playthrough 2.
Good. I just wish you would have done it before we recorded this, Brian.
I look, there are times it is certainly my fault. I quit Borderlands because it sucked. That's true. Tales from the Borderlands. Real Borderlands good. Tales from the Borderlands bad. Just so people can categorize this correctly.
He quit Borderlands is true. It sucks.
So
not true.
The thing is, this was not my fault legitimately, but like I did enjoy blasting through it. So technically, I've essentially almost gone through the game 3 times because like I had to play through. But the new missions are cool. And there are some that were definitely more challenging than others. Like, New Game Plus, killing the 2 guys, the 2 red guns. That was a little bit of a challenge. Beltis at the end of the game.
Real quick, stop there for a second. That was not an option the first time through, right? Like, I'm not
No, that was new.
Okay. Interesting. On the third playthrough, there's another... I did that, and I didn't fight them the third time through. I just took down the dam. And then I got a new mission on my third playthrough where you escort the mining ship instead of destroying it. Have any of you seen that option? It is
I think that's only in the third game.
Okay, because it is excruciatingly difficult. Like, I mowed through New Game Plus, and it didn't... That mission has me stymied on the first chapter of my third playthrough. But, getting away from that for a second, a general question for the group... Do you like the way that they structured this where you have to do multiple playthroughs of the same game to get all of the story, or would the game have been better served if they had released DLC with just something different?
Let me jump in first because then you guys can run with it. If I could say this, I think there's positives and negatives. I think it's cool that you get a fuller understanding of some of the background things that are happening in the story as you go through multiple times. I do think that's cool. But the battle that I have is there is a large bulk amount of missions in the main game that are the exact same. And maybe some of these missions will be changed in my third playthrough a little bit more, but it's even through my second, there's only been like 3 or 4 ones that I haven't done, so you're largely just repeating the game. And I think that's kind of an interesting choice.
I like the fact that, like, hey, look, I bought it once and it's giving me some sort of replayability. It's better than just like, hey, now play the game again, just more hard, right? I do think though, like, the one thing that this sort of thing, like, I can't stand is I have FOMO with it. So it's almost like, okay, so now wait, which now I'm starting from 2, and I know that I'm going, and it's going to be different. What's different? When is it different? Was this different? Oh my god! So like that, almost like, and like even like to like what Matt was saying, right? Where like, oh
Mike.
yeah, like I played through and I
Mike.
messed up. Mike,
Mhm.
sorry, Mike. I messed up and I didn't do the right combo, or I didn't like make the right choice, and I ended up in the same path. So like, it's almost like if you're gonna let me do it a second time, just like walk me down that path and say, okay, this time it's different, or at least like guide me better.
Yeah, I actually agree. I compared this last time to Nier, which also has you playing through multiple times. I think Nier did it better because Nier you start the same and then it goes pretty radically different at a certain point in each playthrough. I think they would have been better served in this game using that approach. Admittedly, there's a lot of cost involved because then you have to do more original content. But there's not a lot of difference until you get pretty far into the second and third playthroughs. You start on the same road and it doesn't diverge until you've played quite a few missions. So I agree there's a certain, sameness that it feels like through the first part of your future playthroughs.
I enjoyed the strategy, and I enjoyed especially not having to like pay more to do it to get more armored core. So I don't particularly take issue with that mechanic of just replaying it as New Game Plus or New Game Plus Plus. But what I thought was interesting, for a game that wants you to play through it multiple times, it reuses a surprising number of assets, particularly bosses that are reintroduced in different ways. Mike, was it exciting to face like harder versions of these familiar faces, or did it take away from the experience for you?
Oh, I don't mind that as long as the fight feels different. If the environment as long as something about it feels different, even if it's just them being faster and tougher, it still feels different enough that I'm fine with it. As long as it's not exactly the same fight the second time through. I mean, people complain about that in games like this all the time, that they want every boss to be original, but realistically, I don't mind reusing bosses as long as it's not just completely, a cakewalk the second time you run into them.
I do find it interesting though, like they reuse bosses even in like your first playthrough. So not only are you beating everything again, right? But even the first time you play through, it's like, oh, I'm fighting Baltius again. Oh, here's the cleaner again, right? So there is that level of like, you're recycling even before we get to like New Game Plus. And then also like for a game that we've talked about so much about how like, wow, you can do so much, you can customize so much, right? Why are we only having the same bosses? I would have even been like, throw in some more of like the two fights, like with we're talking about the red guards, like throw in more stuff like that with more like AC battles that are more unique, with the AC battles that do different stuff, right? Like I'm thinking about like there's the one AC battle where with the guy with the flamethrower, right? Like that was a really interesting fight and a different fight than most ACs because he's built way different, right? Like build out more combos that like are a little bit different with all the different AC parts you can build with.
And I would agree, just because like Baltius again, I went through him on New Game Plus. The fight was maybe a minute and a half. Like once you kind of get used to dodging, did you guys? It is satisfying when you come through some of these bosses the second time that you are noticeably better than the first time you went through it. I'm interested when we do Baltius the second time. I had to do a build specifically for him because that second phase of the fight where he like turns into like the flying blade of death, like that was nuking me off the field real quick. That might be the most deaths I had. And for the love of God, that stupid door. Before the fight, the door is down. You walk up to the door, you open the stupid door. He flies up to me, I lock onto him, and then I chase him to the same spot he lands every time, and then you go from there. That was interesting. Because like I felt like the game did get the tail end of the game. I thought was a great challenge. I'm hoping the new game stuff has more challenges like that to it. The red guns did take me a couple of times to beat them because they were killing me. But then I used the same build I used to kill like the super Baltus, and I just destroyed them. So there's that. But I wish it wasn't quite as crazy to change up my build to experiment with against some of these bosses, because it takes a lot of work to build a functional build. it's there's just so many pieces to it. But I would say I will say that this is a FromSoft game. They nail their boss fights. Their boss fights are fun. They've got set pieces. It's usually they just know how to create a scene, right? They know how to create something that is just like, oh my god, this is like a Michael Bay kind of film. They're so good at that.
It's interesting that Balteus has come up so many times. Like, I barely got through him the first time. I thought Balteus was my breaking point for this game, and that I would just never see the end, and that I'd never beat him. That's the end of chapter 1, right? Yeah, like,
Yeah, how'd you do on the second time through? Did you do better?
I nuked him in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the builds are better or if that's just a situation where we're smarter. Because the build that I fought him with was the same build I did the first time, but it was so much faster. So it's just like, because I'm trying to figure out what's the difference in equipment or skill, but I feel like the skill level for most of us, it builds up naturally. And I love that with a game. I like how the game is so, it's so easy in certain ways to approach, but it's hard to master. And you don't appreciate how far you've come until you come back to some of these early missions and you destroy them. And you're like, okay, wait a minute. What was the problem at the first time we did this?
John, I know you have a point, but let me jump in with a real quick aside. Brian, did it ever feel like DMC5 to you? Because, like, that easy to approach, hard to master, like, there's a lot of button mashing that I did in Devil May Cry to get through it, but I never felt like I mastered the nuance.
Devil May Cry, I would say, was a lot more like I was almost trying to play a fighting game as I'm playing a beat 'em up, because there is so much specific notation. I feel like this game was way more approachable because, for the most part, the controls are fairly intuitive outside of the lock system. I will die on the hill saying that their lock system is trash. Let me hit a button to lock. Let me hit the button again to unlock. If I tap the camera, it should not take me off of lock. That is the stupidest decision that they did in this game. But I felt like it felt more fluid and easier than Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry definitely has, I think, a lot of a more difficult learning curve. And the high end of the high end is really cool, the stuff you can do, but it's way more complex.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Tom, I'm surprised that you burned through Balteus so quick on the second, because I had the complete opposite. I burned through him the first time. I was like, oh, okay, I figure out what he's doing, and I destroyed him pretty quick. I tried like 3 or 4 different builds before I switched into big old tank mode and used that to beat him the final time. So I was like, I'm gonna try double shotguns, I'm trying songbirds, I'm using my stinger, I'm trying everything, like nothing working. Like, all right, time for big dumb tank, and then I was able to stay alive and kill him.
Yeah, I just stumbled into a build that was really effective for some reason. Like, at the beginning of New Game Plus, I just decided to try some new things. I did a bazooka on one arm, because I like having a bazooka on one arm. I did a plasma rifle on the other arm, and I had vertical plasma missiles on one shoulder, and I had I think regular missiles, no, a plasma launcher on the other shoulder. And I don't know, it worked great against him, because I basically charged directly at him, unloaded everything, and that was the end of the fight. I'm like, wow, that was a significantly different experience. One thing about it was I had a bigger toolbox in my arsenal, which I think really just helped with New Game Plus in general. Like, I was very frugal my first time through. Like, I would use the tools that I had until I just couldn't get past a point, because I hated restarting a mission to go to the parts store. And so I would try very hard to use whatever I had already amassed through the playthrough. And at the end of the first playthrough, I had to buy a lot of specific stuff to get through the last couple of bosses. I'm like, oh, a lot more stuff, and I stumbled on this build that I like, and it just shredded for most of New Game Plus.
I need that build.
What is the build?
My right
hand. Is it the same flamethrower thing or not?
No flamethrower on that one. The right hand was the detonating bazooka that you get for completing something in the first game. The left hand was a plasma rifle, which I'm pretty sure that you also get handed at some point. Vertical plasma launchers, and the plasma launcher that looks like a cockroach on your shoulder.
It is crazy after New Game Plus. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. I was just saying after New Game Plus, how many guns I didn't use.
Yeah, my question was more about what was your actual, mech itself, though. What legs and,
Boy, that I can't recall.
Were
It
you
was kind of.
mobile or were you just big and heavy?
I was at best a medium build. I definitely wasn't a light build, and I definitely wasn't in big heavy tank mode. It was bipedal legs. I think a medium core, and a head that reminded me of Iron Man.
So full on Gundam then. Okay.
I don't know what that means, but yes. So what was everyone's favorite boss fight through?
Gundam sometime.
What was everyone's favorite boss fight through the regular game or New Game Plus?
I think my favorite boss fight was I loved the ice worm. The ice worm was awesome. Like, to me, it was just like the big. Like, I love that set piece. I loved everything about it. I love how people were like dying around me and just all that. Like, that to me was the best. And then like probably like right after it, if not better, would be the final boss fight. And are we doing full spoilers?
Yeah, spoilers.
All right,
Spoilers.
yeah, like coming back and having to fight Walter, the handler, like in the end, I was like, oh, that was a great fight. And like, just was fast. I didn't, and like, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do big dumb tank mode on this. And I beat him with like my light build and was like, it was just such a cool fight. And like the music on that last final fight and everything, it was just awesome. So like, favorite, like, you know, kind of one-on-one was definitely Walter. And then like the big set piece fights for me was Iceworm.
Mine's also Iceworm. I will say though that with Baltius, the thing I do appreciate was when he fired off all of the missiles at one time. It was very Macross, right? Like they're just everywhere. They're all tracking. You're trying to dodge everything. So I thought that one was a ton of fun, but it's the Iceworm is just, it's very different than the others because of just the magnitude of the fight. And how you have to approach it. You have a very specific way that you have to try to like get this thing vulnerable. I think I beat the Iceworm on like the first or second attempt, which was pretty lucky because I was just about to die. But I'm hoping that there's more fights of that magnitude as we go through New Game Plus. Because like I said, but there's 22 extra missions. Do you have to go through the game 3 or 4 times, or is it even 5? It's 3. Oh man, that's a lot of things. Making different decisions. That's a lot.
There's charts on the internet for it.
Yeah,
you might want to look at that just to save yourself some heartache. But on that, I got to call out that the Iceworm is the correct answer here. It has to be, but it's just that culmination of what FromSoft has been doing lately of adding these fights where you are part of a group. I'm thinking of the Radon Festival from Elden Ring, and they just do that so well. And this was so good. You have everybody out there squabbling over the radio, and you're fighting back and forth, and this thing is coming up out of the ground, and then all of a sudden, at the end, you're not the one who saves the day. It's actually somebody else who takes the shot and has probably the best line in the whole game, where he just says, what did he say? I won't miss. And he takes the shot, and then everything pauses. And then, it's just so well directed it's a movie scene, really, at the end there.
Yeah, and the size of that shot that hits it too, Mike, it just is that massive blast that just shreds it. It's so good.
It's beautiful. But I did want to honorable mention the fight against the other Raven. You guys remember that one?
Yes.
Because you come out and you think you're doing something, and it turns out what you're coming into is not what you expected. And he comes flying in, and they do this backlit shot where he's just standing there looking menacing and cool, and you're like, oh boy, this is not what I thought I was getting into. And then you have to fight him for the name, basically, which is important for the whole history of the series. Being Raven is kind of a thing. So it was cool that they did that rather than just what they did at the start, where you just find the name Raven on the ground by a, destroyed core. That's not the end of it. You have to do this whole fight later on. And man, I just love that setup.
Even going through this game, like all the way through and a third through a second time, there's clearly so much about this story I have no clue on.
That's because it doesn't make any sense, Brian, but we'll get there. A couple of thoughts that I have on boss fights. Like, I Agree with the Ice Worm to a degree. I think it's the best set piece moment, and it's a phenomenal thing. I don't necessarily think it's the best fight because, like, just waiting to line up your stun needle is kind of gimmicky to me, and that didn't particularly grab me. The fights that I felt were some of my favorites. I had an affinity for fighting the cleaner because, like, the doors open up and here's this giant bulldozer thing and it's like right in your face and it's like, oh, that is very intimidating. Another one that I liked was fighting Cinder and Chatty towards the end of the game. Like, that was very bittersweet for me, and it shows that y'all made the wrong choice, and we'll get into that during the story part.
You know, I think that's another good thing too. Like, they do a really good job of when you have to fight these mechs and when you have to turn on people and this and that, like, with such little dialogue, some of these mechs have such personalities. Like, I was so ready to kill Snail, right? Like, so ready. And then, like, you know, then he goes and he becomes Baltius and whatever. But, like, that first fight against them, like, oh, I'm so ready to kill you. I hate you so much, Snail. I'm going to destroy you. Right? Like, that was like, no, go, because I think you can skip that. I'm not sure if that's the one where you can skip. You can just be like, no, whatever. I'm like, nope. I like stopped. It's like, oh, he's back there. And I turned around and went back the other way to say, no, I'm going to kill him.
It doesn't matter how much ammo I have. He's going to get it.
He's dying. Yeah. I'm going to kill him. It was so satisfying.
Is there another way to kill the cleaner head on? Because I'm like doing the cheapest way. I fly above him and just shoot down his little smokestack. And, like, there is nothing he can do to me. It is, like, pathetic. Last time I put on the Tetra legs, float above him, there is zero he can do to damage you. Is there another way to do that?
Yeah, the last time I fought him, I just stood across the room and shot rockets at his weak spot, like, in between his arms.
Yeah, there's a straight-up, like, Star Wars exhaust port. You know, if you shoot missiles into that, it's, like, instant stagger, like, almost, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so, like, but you got to be careful, right? Because if you're too close, right, he rushes you, and then, like, you're in between his two, like, arms. So it's risk reward.
You have to jump over the top to dodge once in a while, but you can actually kill him just by shooting the front port. Yeah.
It kills him way faster than the exhaust on top, and then you're not vulnerable to, like, when he lava shoots out the top as well.
Yeah, he won't spurt on you, which I know you're always afraid of, Ryan. And another one that I just want to call out, I forget the mech's name, but when you don't kill the dude, like, you go on the mission to ambush the one guy, and mid-fight you get the choice to either finish him off or spare him. And when we talked in part 1, I think we all just killed him. So in second playthrough, I spared him, and another mech comes riding in from the Liberation Front trying to put you down for failing to do the job. And it was just an awesome intro, and I really wish I would have jotted down his name, because that was arguably the coolest mech that I saw in the game. Like, coolest normal size mech.
Gosh, now I'm remembering, like, also, like, the boss you fight that is running on coral. Gosh, it's like you're on the water. I forget what the name of it is, but like
the living weapon.
It's like yeah, one of their big secret weapons that's protecting
the
coral.
C3.
Yeah, that one was cool too.
Whoa,
and just like that was a fun fight. It took me a while to beat that one, but like it was one of those where I was like, I know your pattern, and I'm not big tanking it. I'm gonna beat your pattern, and eventually took it down by like playing the right way, right? Not just the brute force way.
Now, Mike, you played this a bunch of times through. Is that the boss fight you said was almost unbeatable? Because doesn't air take over that thing at the end of one of the multiple playthroughs, and you have to fight it like in Uber mode?
Yeah, the mission I had trouble with was the one we had to fight G1 Michigan and the whole gang. And I don't remember the name of the mission.
But it's ambush the red guns, I think.
Yeah, it's when you're in that round room, right? You're in that round room and you can spin around. Yeah.
Oh, I hated that. I died. Well, that was the one mission where I ran out of ammo multiple times because the build I was using was mostly power weapons with not a lot of shots. And usually that was fine. Well, but in that mission, there were so many things to shoot, and they had those multiple tetrapods. I literally ran out of ammo for my stupid bazooka and my songbird, and it was like, well, this really sucks because I'm out there trying to kick people. So I had to change up my whole setup and go with weapons with way more ammo and kind of memorize where certain things were to get through the mission properly. And I just had a horrible time with that one.
And I
Mike devolved into Rochambeau at the end.
There was a couple of times early before I changed my build where I basically was down to hand-to-hand combat because I didn't have much else that I could do.
Mike, I have so much respect for all of the From Software games that you've beaten that I've only scratched the surface on. So I got to that mission in Big Giant Tank mode, and I rolled through it in one try. I'm like, oh, well, I can't wait to taunt Mike about this. It's like the one From Soft accomplishment that I have that you don't have on your resume.
Well, congratulations! I think that's impressive. That's a cool job that you got through that one without any real struggle. Because believe me, I struggle.
Yeah, that was
it. It's really interesting too, as we're talking about all these bosses and we're seeing these things, right? So like, I don't know if you guys have played. I'll play Demon Souls, right? But to see like the growth and the change of FromSoft, like I do really think that like when you talk about like we all loved, Iceworm, but like because of how cinematic and how like it is kind of gimmicky, but like I just think back to even like like there's like the big giant dragon you fight in Demon Souls, and I really enjoy FromSoft boss battles where what you're doing is you're finding the gimmick. And then you find the gimmick and you're like, oh, now this is easy mode. It's like, that's the puzzle unlock. And like, I think they have done such a good job in this game, and they did in Elden Ring, and they've, they're doing it more and more where like finding the gimmick for you. Great. It's, lining up the stun needle, right. And then you get it. And then like tying that into like this, making you feel like amazing because of the big thing that you're doing with it. So yeah. Kudos to
That is really cool. And like ultimately this is an entire game stitched together out of like 30 cool mech designs. And it's just like, oh, fight this mech. Oh, fight these mechs. Oh, fight this mech. And like the fact that they're able to weave interesting set piece moments around it. And like I think it's an awesome way to fight 30-ish mechs or so and to like have a lot of fun tricking out your own mech. But where I think this game struggles is in the story department. In part 1 of our discussion, I stopped just before the completion of Chapter 4, and at that point, I was lukewarm in the story. And Mike, you said that I just hadn't really been exposed to it. So I'm now officially stating on the record that the story of Armored Core 6 is typical FromSoft fare, confusing, nebulous, and nigh incomprehensible without a wiki. As Exhibit A, I would like each of us, starting with John, to explain precisely what Coral is without looking it up.
All right. I wrote this as soon as I saw the prompt, right? So it's an ethereal energy force that everyone fights over for its known power.
All right. That's pretty good, Brian.
That's the truth.
My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. From my interpretation, from early on, the game tells us that it is used to move large amounts of data. It's also used as fuel. So that's kind of the first start, but clearly it's also sentient in some capacity. It makes me think of the poplars from Futurama, where you're like, oh, you're just this thing we used, and oh god, you're sentient, and oh god, I'm hurting your feelings about this. I didn't mean to eat you. I'm sorry. It's a sentient kind of thing that does, I think it seems to like augment almost like evolution with humans. It's almost like spice. That's how I'd be like an equivalent of spice from Dune.
I think of it, it's the live stream for Final Fantasy VII, except that it's intelligent. And it's made up of many, many intelligences. So it is an energy source, but it's an energy source that's actually living creatures. We didn't realize they were alive and they were sentient. At least I don't think humanity knew they were alive and sentient. Or maybe some people did. I'm not so sure the companies might not have known that. I don't know if that's made clear. But yeah, it's living creatures that we can suck up for energy. And that's what we've been doing. We've been killing these creatures for their energy.
And I totally saw the Final Fantasy VII comparison when I was playing it too. I'm glad that you brought that up, Mike. I think they allude to other people being exposed to Coral and hearing voices. Walter and I think Cinder talk about it on one of their asides. Like Walter says, I think he's hearing the voices. They allude to it being an issue before, but the correct answer is that Coral is an evil, corrupting force that strips away your free will. So there are multiple endings in the game.
How useful is that?
Yeah. I think it's pretty useful. I think it's rather important. I don't believe in a determinist future, Mike. So there are multiple endings in this game.
That's what makes the endings so different. There's a radical difference on what happens if you go one path versus the other, as far as I can tell. get the second ending, but I did look into what it was, and I was like, wow, they really they went somewhere. And I don't know what the third ending would be, but I can imagine it's probably a pretty radical departure too.
And I'm just bursting to talk about that second ending. So, three different endings. I've seen two of them. You guys have all seen one. Who, Brian, did you side with, and why did you choose that side?
I was tired of Cindy talking all that noise to me, so I just murdered her. She was really a byproduct of her attitude. So I wound up siding with the Rubicon and the Rubicon and the in air, just because I was so sick of that woman like acting like I was some sort. She called me tourist. I've been there the whole time. I am at this point a local native, and I am tired of her attitude. And I murdered her. And then I realized I had chosen a side due to the murder. I'm like, well, this is my ending.
Brian, she saved your life.
Kind of. Like, but
She
at the same
rescued
time,
you?
like, I also had to like. She also gave me a hard time when I was trying to travel to the ice place, and I had to fight all those stupid things. And then she made me take care of all the hacking drones. This woman is just like a leech of free work. So, like, no, she's not great.
John.
Well, I mean, I sided with Rubiconians as well, not because I didn't like Cindy, right? Actually, that was a hard choice because I didn't want to have to take her down, but I was like, I don't want to side with these corporations, right? I was like, oh no, like I believe that, you know, Aerie, right? The coral, the voice that was talking to me, like, yeah, this is a living thing, right? And we should like give the power back to like the Liberation Front, the people that are native here that are fighting for their planet and this stuff. Like, that's the cause I was going for, right? Down with capitalism, I guess. Go, you know, native coral, right?
Then Mike.
Yeah, it's hard to side with the corporations first time through because you don't get any feeling that there's anything there to side with. I mean, they treat you like most of them treat you like crud the whole way through, and they're just there to, you know, exploit everything they can get their hands on. So it's kind of natural you would default to helping the Liberation Front as your first choice. I think that's designed to kind of be the default choice. Honestly, just the way the story is presented.
And I'm with you, especially John and Mike. And I chose the Liberation Front my first playthrough. I'll get to you, big guy. I chose the Liberation Front my first time through because I didn't want to commit genocide. It's like, you know, if we burn all the coral, like, this sentient race is just gone forever. And it's like, that's not a choice that I would make very lightly. So how did you guys feel when you had to turn on your buddies then, outside of Brian, who relished the chance to fight Cinder? What kind of reaction did that elicit from you guys? Because I didn't feel good after fighting Cinder and Chatty. I'm like, did I do the right thing?
No, it sucked. Right? Like, I did not want to kill either of them. Like, I liked them. Like, you know, again, I'm coming off of, like, I turned around to kill Snail because I hate him, right? But I did not want to kill, especially, like, you know, Chatty's awesome. And he was an AI. He's not even, like, a human, right? And I didn't want to kill Chatty. So, you know, it was hard to have to, like, be like, nope, sorry. You guys got to go because I can't, like, you know, destroy all this other stuff.
Yeah, Cinder Carla was a cool, tough old bird, and I was like, I just felt kind of like, oh man, this is not the path I wanted to walk down. But you get to a certain point and you realize, you know, this is what your choices led you to, whether you expected it to or not, and choices have consequences.
So three of us felt pretty gross about it. Brian, you were just elated. It's like, oh, good. Put her in the ground. What comes next?
I had enough of her attitude, man. She had a whole game to convince me not to do that, and every time the corporations used me. The other mech people used me. My handler used me. The only person that really seemed to like support me was Air. Like, literally the only person.
And I get that, and that factored into my decision the first time too. And then, like, having to kill Cinder and Chatty stuck with me. And so the second playthrough, I'm like, well, I want to see what the other branch of the tree does. So I went down the other path, and, like, I realized as you're fighting Air, who's just a super cheap boss at the end of the game and super duper frustrating. It's like, oh, she was just building up my trust, like getting inside my brain and like working to turn me against my friends the whole time. It's like, oh, that is an evil, insidious presence that is just always with you, always working to help you. But I don't think that anybody helps you by turning you on your friends.
Tom, can you do two things? Can you elaborate more about Air's motive, and then can you also tell us more about that boss fight?
Yeah, so regarding Air's motive, she is motivated by self-preservation, which I totally understand. And like, if I was in the Coral's position, like, I would jump right into John's brain and I would start punching babies if that's what it took. So like, I'm empathetic to her cause, but I don't think that, she was all truistic in her motives either. It's not like when you stop the corporations that everything is just peachy between humanity and the Coral. So she's just this evil, insidious, insistent force that's always with you, always watching, always there with a friendly word when you're feeling down. And I think it was very clever how evil and devious this presence was.
Was she the hardest fight for you then?
She was the most miserable experience in the game for me, certainly. I mean, Balteus the first time through, that's a culture shock. And like, you might not have the right tools for the job there. So like, there's a lot of issues that I had with Balteus at the end of chapter 1, and with him being behind a mini boss and with him being beyond this long thing. So if you have to restart the mission, it's kind of a pain in the butt even to get back to him. But Ayer is just a miserable experience. John, did you have a quick question or interjection?
Well, yeah. So if it was so miserable, right, is your distrust and your like, she's so evil and this and that, is it tied to her actual motives, or is it tied to your actual like experience with her as a boss in the game?
No, it's her being Yoko Ono and like making you kill the other beetles, right? So,
Okay.
But the boss fight itself, what makes it so tricky and frustrating, like, she's got weapons that just shred you. All right, she's an end boss. She's supposed to have weapons that shred you, right? But what makes her so particularly miserable is she is so much faster than anything you've fought before. And she doesn't just go zoom from point A to point B. She kind of teleports from point A to point C to point H to point B to point D. And it's like, you can't get a lock. You can't shoot her. And then like, she'll be right on top of you with her melee attack, which just melts you. And it's like, man, as frustrating as Balteus was and as hard as it was to get through that shield, like, I at least felt like there was logic behind it. Like, this was complete chaos ending with a hammer hitting you on the head. And it wasn't enough to ruin the experience for me, but I did have to look up a specific build for fighting her, which I had to do 2 times in my first playthrough.
Just so you know, Tom, she is considered, from what I've read, the hardest boss in the game. So you took the hardest boss. You talked about that you're always worried about hitting that insurmountable wall. You went through it. So it's not the bulb that's on fire, Tom. You did it.
I was going to say he should go try Sekiro again and see if he can take down the bull. Now you've been trained. Let's do it, Tom.
I've been thinking about that
Bull's
GD
like
bull.
The 7th hardest boss in Sekiro at worst. I mean, come on now.
I've been thinking about that stupid bull, and like, it harkens back to Dark Souls for me. There is a giant wolf with a sword who has a similar rushing at you mechanic, and that boss also just gave me fits until I finally just grabbed a bow and ran and fired my bow and ran and fired my bow from it. The thing that wasn't particularly satisfying about Air is like, I had to watch a video to get the right build. Okay, I didn't have all the right tools for the job, so I buy the right stuff, but I also had to like watch and mimic and like study exactly how to fight her too, because with her erratic movements, the only protection you have against that is being all the way back up against the end of the map. So the strategy that I watched in the video was you have to be against the map, and that keeps her from getting behind you. So you basically just run circles around the arena. Sometimes she'll overshoot you, and then you have to change your direction and go back the other way. And it's basically double stun needles, double majestic bazookas on your arms with the mini tank tread build. And it's interesting, like, I fought her maybe 15, 20 times. 18 of those times, if it was 20 tries, 18 times I failed to get her out of phase 1. One time I got her to phase 2, I'm like, oh, good, I'm making progress. And then I finally, with that build, with the right tricks, the next time I got her to phase 2, I just shredded that second phase. I had thought that Stun Needle was just for breaking shields and wasn't firing it when she was staggered.
Oh,
yeah, that was a mistake, and that also will probably aid me in New Game Plus Plus.
Yeah, I had to do that for the red guns in Baltis. For Baltis, I did double Gatling guns and the needles, and it let me shred him down quickly. And it was I never really used those Gatling guns, and then I was like, well, I'm gonna try some of the arena quests with that build. You obliterate things. I did the S ranks, some of those in 25, 26 seconds. Like, it was absurd, the damage output.
Yeah, I had to get the multi-gat strategy from a video too, because Snail Balteus at the end of, or towards the end of Chapter 5 was one build that I had to look up. Then Walter had to look up a build and a strategy for, and then Iris. So I guess out of this entire game, only having to look up a build for the 2 end bosses and 1 penultimate boss, I guess I did all right.
Nice job, Tom.
Yeah, I'm good at stuff. Armored Core 6 oozes style and sometimes silliness, from cool mech designs to crazy boss builds to set-piece moments and remarkable dying lines. What were a couple of the moments that stand out from the experience? Mike, let's start with you in this one.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the dying lines, because I want to call it the voice acting in this game. They got it. The voice actors understood what they were doing, and that sometimes what they were doing was going to be over the top, and they didn't stop short. They went all out, and it works. I call out my man G1 Michigan for this, the master, Captain Snark himself. Everything he said was gold. Everything that man says is gold from start to finish of that game. I mean, he falls in love with you, the character, when you climb the wall, and he just loves you so much when you're fighting him at the end. He still thinks you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, even as you're killing him. Oh man, I love that guy so much. But I also want to mention, what was Carla's, the guard dog guy at the front you killed right away? Invincible Rummy. Remember him?
I do not.
First, he was far from invincible, which was hilarious, but his core was called Mad Stomp, and when you beat him, he does this dying yell where he just yells "Mad Stomp!"
Mad Stomp! I beat that mission before I hopped on, Mike.
The way he delivers that line is just so beautifully silly. It just makes me smile thinking about it, but it was the right thing to do. They understood that they didn't have to try to be, 100% serious to the moment, that they could have some fun with that stuff, and it just adds an extra layer of enjoyment to the game. And this is a game with only voice acting. There's no pictures of any characters. There's no, face shots. There's no portraits. They're just voices over the radio. So the voices over the radio have to do a good job, and pretty much all of them do.
He was also, I think, so our Mad Stomp boy was also, he's the first boss you fight, or he's the first arena fight you can have. So he's like the lowest of the lowest F tier.
Invincible Rummy.
Also interesting with the voice acting is a relatively small cast. I think it was like 12 to 15 people that voiced all the mechs. Everyone did multiples. So I knew your affinity for the voice acting, so I paid attention for that the last time the credits rolled. It's like, oh, well, that's pretty remarkable what they did with a small cast. John, what stood out for you?
I really like the big bosses in this game, right? Like, it's always fun, like, when you get a boss, but, like, you have, like, a Shadow of Colossus moment where you're climbing on it. That sort of stuff is fun. I like that. Like we talked about Ice Worm. And then, like, there was a couple really cool missions, too, where they did things differently. Like, I really enjoyed the mission where you had to quickly go and, like, collect all of the different, like, AC cores or, like, tags or whatever it is. You're running around a map and, and at the end, like, someone drops down and, like, you would get some great just, like, in-game dialogue like that where, like, you're at the end and then someone's like, no, you can't take this one, I'm gonna get you. And I don't know, like, just those, like, one-liners sometimes that would pop in even from random ACs were fantastic and just added just enough, like, character to the world that keeps it fresh, especially for a world that is pretty bleak and there's not much to, like, look at, right? It's all gray. There really isn't anything to really look at in the world, but the voice acting brings it to life.
Bry Guy, what about you?
Mine's very different than Mike and John. It's some of the environments and some of the cities. Like, the mechs are cool, the boss fights are cool, all of this stuff. I keep finding myself so impressed by some of these gigantic structures, these sandboxes that I get to play in, whether it's the floating city, whether it's some of the refineries you go to. There's so much detail in these places, from girders to lights to the light saturation to all of these different things. They made these really cool, like, I'm a huge fan of Blade Runner, right? So it's like a Blade Runner-esque kind of environment. And sometimes when we're flying through these things in our mechs, because you're boosting everywhere, you don't always kind of realize like how pretty the environments are, how much detail some of these environments have, how destructible so much of this stuff is. So as much as I appreciate the mechs themselves, the fights, the ice worms, sometimes just some of the cities and landscapes and places that they built, man, they did a really, really good job in creating like a futuristic, not dystopian, but like mega corporation has gone wild kind of a aesthetic, and I really liked it. I really like that.
That's interesting. I mean, the mech designs are all really cool. The cities were interesting, but what sticks with me after the experience was a couple of the moments after you complete missions. So, like, you have this frenetic battle against a mech, and given my skill with games, it's always like a nail biter. Like, is this going to be the one that ruins the experience for me where I bounce off forever? And then a lot of times after that, like, there's a very cinematic moment afterwards. Like, there's the one where you have to defend, I think, the watch point, like the missiles on it as waves of enemies are coming at you, and then Cinder and Chatty like shoot off the missiles at the end of the mission. It's like I grabbed a screenshot of that. I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting, somber moment after this like harrowing fight. And there were just a couple of times like that. It seems like the only time that I thought to actually grab a screen grab was after a big fight. It's like, oh, well, here's the aftermath. Here's a screenshot.
That made me think of something that was an odd question. So you guys, when we have to go and you fly through the city, and then like the spot where you have to like defend the missiles, right? There's that long bridge, and you fought that mech guy in there, right?
Solo.
So the first time you have that mech fight, you go inside the building. It gives you what is it, like the supply update or whatever it is, where you get all your stuff back.
Mm-hmm.
You go in and you blow off the bottom of that machine, and it's over. There's no boss fight, no nothing. What is the point of that supply drop?
You're missing one somewhat crucial part of that. So you blow up the thing, you get air splashed in your face, and you're forever corrupted for all time, so that you're eventually going to murder your friends. Then you pop up on the roof, and you fight Balteus.
Yeah, that's where.
That was right after that. I guess I didn't even read that fight was so fast. I didn't even think about it.
Not for me. I've been through that mission a few times.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I bought 4 new weapons. Let's give this a try now.
Okay, that would be correct. Yeah, with the energy lasers and stuff, you can just kind of shred him. But there was the first build that I ever put into this game was a close quarter specialized build. I still use that in New Game Plus occasionally when I'm fighting a mech one-on-one. So it's just funny how like some of this stuff remains quite viable throughout the entirety of the playthrough.
Yeah, and bazookas are always viable, which makes it a very Tom-friendly game.
I've yet to use one. I gotta at least try those before I hang this game up.
Bry Guy, how can you play a game with giant mechs and never fire a bazooka? Like, what's wrong with you? Are you broken?
You need big booms. Right?
I like to move very fast. That's what I prefer.
Make sure you introduce everyone to your good friend Pile Bunker, because Pile Bunker has something to say.
Pile Bunker is awesome. Yes.
Fair enough.
I'll have to try him. So, Mike, who should play Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon?
Anybody who loves mech games?
That feels like a pretty small audience. Games? Like, is there a wider group that should be...
Anybody who loves anybody who loves just really cool action combat. It has some of the best action combat since, well, Devil May Cry 5 is a good comparison, I think. I mean, honestly, other than DMC, I don't know who does action combat better than this game in the modern era. I really don't think there is anybody.
What about the studio that made Bayonetta? Is that Platinum?
Bayonetta 3. I'm not as big a fan of Bayonetta as some are, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask that.
I played like 30 minutes of it.
I just don't know. That game never really hooked me.
Her clothes was her hair, man. Like, what's not to hook? She's like a living fishing lure. John, who should play Armored Core 6?
It's funny. I had the same exact thing written down, right? Was, FromSoft fans, mech fans, right? All 7 of them, right? But like, I do think that, there is something here for people who like, if you want something different, if you want fast pace, and if you like customization, right? That is also a key thing. If you're the type of person, you're like, hey, I want to play a game, but I want to control how I fight. Like, we talk about like all these different builds, and I do think that for some key bosses, you do have to find the magic formula, but for the majority of the game, you can play how you want. And I think that's something that's really refreshing to say. I like, Brian likes swords and being fast, right? Tom's like, how could you not play with bazookas, right? Everyone can come at this from a different angle. And I think if you like to have that level of flexibility, it's worth a shot.
And how refreshing was it playing this game coming off of Ghost of Tsushima, where like there isn't a lot of customization. Like, you're fighting with your katana, you're doing your ghost weapons. So it's really interesting just contrasting these two games against each other. And regarding the magic formula for certain bosses, like that makes me think of the Starship Troopers RTS that we played for the Starship Troopers show, where you had to have very specific compositions of units to get through different missions. It's like, man, this was not that restrictive. So there are definitely tools that you should have for bosses, but I still feel like it's more approachable.
Yeah,
Right?
and when I say magic formula, right, there's an easy mode for bosses. It's called Big Old Tank or Big A Tank or whatever you want to call it, right? That's the easy mode, right? But like, look, I've seen numerous different ways to beat Balteus, right? Double shotguns, you could use stingers, you can use this. Like, so again, your play, if you're good enough, you can beat, it's FromSoft. You can beat bosses with a wooden broom in FromSoft, right? While using a Guitar Hero controller, right? If you're really, really that good. And I think they translate that over here as well.
And now one other thing, Brian, I swear I'll let you speak in a moment. One other thing that was interesting, I played a few more online matches since our last discussion. And the thing about online, like everybody has a much better grasp of the game than I do. So even playing ranked matches against like the lowest ranked people, like the first time I saw the cool like missile launchers with kind of the tread on the side that fires a whole crap load of missiles, it's like the first time I saw those, somebody had 2 of them fighting against me in the arena. I'm like, wow, I want to get that weapon. That's awesome. And then you get it in a New Game Plus in the arena fight. And then same thing with like the triple laser cannon on the shoulder. Like somebody fought me with that, and all they did was just like jump across the map and then slowly hover down and then take their shot. And like I spent the whole match chasing them and getting blasted in the face until they obliterated me. It's like, oh, I got to get some of those weapons. And then when I went to the store, I bought them. Like, oh, these are awesome. And that was a big chunk of my New Game Plus experience was triple laser cannon on my shoulders. So Brian, who should play Armored Core 6?
If you are an action fan who likes fluid gameplay, go for it. I would agree with Mike in certain ways. I don't know if I would say it's the best action game, but we've played some of the upper tier stuff, right? Like Devil May Cry 5 is considered by a lot of people to be like some of the best action game stuff that you can play. I think I enjoyed this even more than that. The fluidity of the combat, the speed of the combat, as John alluded to, the customization of the combat. And then I've been just watching some videos where like one of the guys that does a lot of lore for Bloodborne, for Elden Ring, all that kind of stuff. It's Vita, whatever his name is. He did a thank you. Yeah, super popular. He did a 5-hour lore video for this game, by the way, if you really want to go deep into this. What's up, Tom?
Well, I just wanted to ask you something. Another comparison to DMC5, Devil May Cry 5. Did you feel more engaged with your faceless, unspeaking protagonist in this game because of the customization options than you did with Dante, Nero, and V? Or did you feel disconnected because your character doesn't say or really interact with anyone other than shooting them?
I think it's different kinds of things. I think that from a story standpoint, the personalities of Nero, the personalities of Dante, like those are very they kind of create a different kind of story because again, it's more character driven. This is not as much. I think the game, what it does, the fact that it makes everything either a mech or a voice, it lets you kind of become Raven a little bit more. Raven is a complete byproduct of you. No matter what you do, Dante looks like Dante. Dante has the same movesets, everything. What you created as your Raven is vastly different than mine, which is different than Mike's, which is different than John's. I think that has at least useful substance to it because you have created something unique entirely to you. Between the fluidity of it, the individualism that you can create with your own experience, and even experiences by choice. If we didn't know about the multiple endings and we chose different things, we could be sitting here talking, and if without the internet, we're having a conversation, we're confused how we all had different endings. Like that, what do you mean? You fought and you blew up the corporations. I'm now I work in their HR. Like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, I joined them. So I think it's a really cool thing that FromSoft has a fun way where it lets people kind of discover and I don't know where this. They let people discover a world, they give them pieces of it, and then let them just kind of draw conclusions around it. Sometimes I wish they gave more direction because sometimes I think, like you said, Tom, nebulous is a great way to say it. It's way nebulous. But I think it does create your own experience, and I think that's why a lot of people love it.
And what I think is interesting about Armored Core against some of the other very popular FromSoft games is that there's no attribute system, and I love that. Like, my bazooka does X damage whether I'm very dexterous or very strong. Like, it doesn't change based on any other build status, which is a tremendous boon for me because, like, playing through Dark Souls the first time, like, I did not understand the correlation between my attributes and the weapons that I was choosing to use. Like, I frequently use dexterity weapons with a strength build, and it's like, oh, I guess I just suck at this, and I'm not hurting anything. In this game, I really appreciate bazooka does X, grenade launcher does Y. I'm sure that non-explosive weapons do something too. I'm just not familiar with them.
There is a little bit of tweaking because based on the guidance system you use, it can actually increase your close quarters, your medium, your long. So depending on what you're doing, you can specialize into it. You made a good point though that is interesting when we talk about these games. This, and we talked about this in the last show, this is one of the most approachable because they let you change your mind. You can sell back something you didn't like for the exact same cost of what you bought it for. So you can rent it, see if you like it, and if you don't, send it back. That's not typical of their other games. And that lets you just really explore and find things that you like because there's no risk. And you can pause. They let me pause my game. I deeply appreciate a good pause.
Word. Well, that's wrapping up our discussion on Armored Core 6. Is there anything else you guys want to say about mechs, which we'll probably never discuss on the show ever again? Brian, I know you did a lot of research that we didn't get to for the Macross show. Anything you want to dive into here?
No, I would say that it is a genre that I know exists. It's something that ties back to some of my old days with Macross, Do You Remember Love? And it was really cool to get to experience this because now when Armored Core 7 comes out, there's a really high chance I buy it. And this is a series that's been around a long time that I've heard of, never thought about, never cared about, Mech Warrior, Armored Core, whatever. I will likely go through this game probably. I might wind up going through the New Game Plus to get all the story or maybe just watch it. But there's still so many weapons I have to unlock. And if 7 comes out, I'll come back. It's been a lot of fun.
John, any closing thoughts on mechs? Any closing shots, if you will?
Well, I probably will after this discussion. See, now I'm itching to get back in and play a little more. So that might be part of why, I bounced, is we kind of stopped talking about it a little bit. So, I'll jump back in. I'm sure I'm going to keep playing. I do think, hey, maybe this won't be our last go around with mechs. I think if we get enough people to throw some money at the Patreon or do this, that we might hit a stretch goal of some sort, and we can do let's all do a mech build on Twitch stream. You can see us build some Gundam models or something like that. It'd be great, right? So mechs don't have to die with this. We can bring them back next year or a couple years down the road.
Yep, pretty sure they're dead and gone forever. Mike, your closing thoughts on mechs?
Well, it seems to me, if I remember right, in the last I don't know if it was the Nintendo Direct or the last State of Play or the last Xbox show, but somebody was putting out a new trailer for a brand new mech game that looked like it was somewhat influenced by Armored Core 6, at least to my eye. And I think that's something to be on the watch for future if you want to revisit mechs. I'll have to go back and try to find out which game that was, because I didn't write the name down or anything, but it looked like a fast-paced, really cool-looking mech game, which, that's what Armored Core 6 was, so it certainly looked interesting. So maybe there's future mechs in the future that you could, hop back into. Maybe Tom could start watching Gundam and, get educated.
Yeah, what's the one show that I need to watch that we discussed on Macross? Neon Evangelical something Genesis.
Neon Genesis. Yep.
Yeah, I had most of the words. Just the orders.
Yeah, that's a light show with very little backstory, very little depth, and nothing you need to think about. Just watch the action. You won't get confused at all.
I have.
Tom, if you went with what you mispronounced, you would have accidentally become a Baptist, and then you'd be real confused. I can't dance, I can't play cards. All I wanted to do was watch the big robots.
Name of that game that Mike is talking about, I believe, is Mecha Break. And
yep, thank you. That was good.
It does look like, even like the reticle around things, it looks like Armored Core 6, but just a little bit more arcadey. Looks like a lot of fun. Maybe we'll be back in for it.
Maybe. I have very much enjoyed our mech content. We did this game, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, for 2 months of OiO Game Club, which was great. And that's why I did mech content, so that I'd have an excuse to play this game. We played Scythe, the digital edition of one of my favorite board games, and we watched Macross, Do You Remember Love, an animated film that I had never seen before. So I think I really enjoyed our mech content, and it's basically because Mike suggested that we play Armored Core 6. But Brian, you made an awesome suggestion with Macross. John, I'm glad you suggested Scythe for the digital board game show. And it's been just a great time with mechs. From here on Game Club, we are moving on to the digital version of Gloomhaven by Flaming Fowl Studios and Saber Interactive Minsk.
And it is currently free if you have Prime Gaming. So if you are a Prime subscriber, you can get it free on the Epic Store. So go ahead, sign up. We're playing it all the time.
We are playing it all the time. John, we've put like 15, 20 hours into this game so far. What's your initial thought on Gloomhaven, the digital edition?
It's freaking amazing, right? Especially considering we tried playing it once on the community on tabletop simulator, and it was kind of clunky and this and that. It is truly like an amazing representation of the board game, and is a lot of fun with the combat, and it's extremely versatile, right? Joey's playing on PS5. I have it on Steam. Tom has it on Epic, and we are all playing with minimal issues.
Yeah, it's been great. A couple of times we've had to restart because I've fallen out of sync. So that is the next 2 months on OiO Game Club. On the main show on May 1st, we're going to have our director episode up with director Doug Lyman, who did Swingers, Edge of Tomorrow, and The Bourne Identity. And then after that, we are going to classic literature with Conan the Barbarian, which will be Mike's first foray onto the big show. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's our upcoming schedule with Outside is Overrated. I hope that you'll jump in and play Gloomhaven with us. Please support Outside is Overrated at patreon.com/OiO. And until next month, stay inside, kids.